Last month, I went to this lovely salon put on by the Unsent Letter Project. I think that's them. Shout out to you guys. Sophia does a beautiful job curating these really charming salons around a theme, and then the audience is basically asked to write a letter on the theme. It's anonymous. Your letter gets collected, and then you break up into groups, and everyone in those small groups gets someone else's letter. You as a small group read them, and then you curate the one that you think is most resonant for whatever reason, and somebody reads it. So then each group is reading whatever letter they've curated, and it's this really a lovely time because the letters are sometimes funny, sometimes they're poignant, sometimes they're heartbreaking, sometimes they're really insightful. And I went to one, the theme was rage, which really wasn't like a theme that particularly resonated with me, but I mean, we're all raging about something in some way or form. And it was just really well done, from just the perspective of, putting on events. And there was a little music, and I'm like, okay, whom am I going to write my letter to? Well, that teacher from 5th grade really annoyed me, and that voice teacher, and blah, 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 and I couldn't decide. And yet I know I love to write letters, right? A big part of my life, as we've talked about elsewhere here. And my therapist has actually been suggesting that I write a letter to my birth mother, who is no longer alive, because, I had a very brief time with her, and obviously being adopted and whatnot, she still comes up a lot in how I process the world. And I'm like, well, I really want to do it. I'm not resisting doing it, but I need 5 hours. I need to have the candles lit and the incense on, and I want it to be this, beautiful experience of my writing her this transcendent letter. And so I've been not getting to that, because when do we have all that perfect time and space in our lives? And so here I am. I don't know who to write this letter to, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write it to my mother. It'll be the proto letter. I end up writing it, and it's, of course, much longer than anybody else's letter. I need extra paper. And the letter gets collected, and it ended up getting read, very fortunately, by a beautiful actor, a professional actor that I had recognized, actually, that was there. And so it was read with real meaning and intent. And, I think in terms of my own healing and my own kind of sense of catharsis, just hearing it read so beautifully, and also having it read not by myself kind of gave it this aliveness and also an objectivity, not just, hearing it internalized for myself. So anyway, here it is. It's Mother's Day. I was able to snap a photo of it afterwards. I snuck in and did that. And it's a bit long, but in celebration of all the mothers in our lives, whether they were present or not, physically there or absent in other ways, the mothers that are still alive, the mothers that aren't biological, adopted, or formally our mothers, but have certainly inspired and raised us in all of the most important ways for all of us out there. This is a letter, kind of a traditional letter to celebrate Mother, and to celebrate the fact that, she need not be, you can have lots of mothers in your life, and whichever ones you do or don't have don't need to still be with you, or didn't necessarily need to be a huge physical part of your life to, in fact, have a huge, huge impact. I didn't even know what my mother looked like until the day before she died. I was 30 years old, and so the way in which she has shaped my life has always been sort of in a shadow as this kind of faceless figure. And while that's painful, there's also something interesting about that, because it breeds possibility and it breeds questions, but it also breeds, for better or worse, even the painful circumstances that have forged my life and myself. So, dear Mother, if I can call you that, the most difficult part of meeting you after 30 years, when you had always been a specter, a figure of my hopeful imagination, was knowing how to introduce myself. Hi, I'm insert name. Hi, I'm your daughter. Hi, I'm that thing you made 30 years ago and gave away. My name felt insufficient. Calling myself your daughter, both overstatement for us and betrayal to my, quote, real parents, real as in adopted, the ones who were there to raise, to rear, to reflect back to me what I might be, yet somehow always knew I wasn't truly, because I didn't have that most basic inheritance one can have, which is knowledge of herself, her roots, her ethnicity, her so-called self. Sure, we are more than our identity, yet of course we also live in a world that checks us off into neat boxes. And I always had to guess, to lie, or to say other. I had to literally other myself, which only compounds the feeling of being not enough, of being ugly, of there being something inherently, irrevocably wrong, quote unquote, and flawed in me. And I know you gave me up for all the right selfless reasons. And while I might feel abandoned existentially, I also know that you indirectly gave me a gorgeous life through others of love, of comfort, of safety. Yet when my mom adopted, gave you a photo of me as a baby at your request, you never reciprocated. Now, maybe it was faulty lawyers' communication, but I can't help feeling if I had grown up with some semblance of your face, I wouldn't have imagined you as a tree of life, as some void, which then, yes, in fact, made me feel utterly wrong in the world. In many ways, I feel no rage towards you. That would be too easy. It would be too expected in a sense. And I can hold the paradox that our loss was also my individual gain. But I think the rage has diverted into some kind of ingrained question of my validity in the world, as I never had my likeness reflected back to me in a photo. It was just a photo. And yet maybe, just maybe, it could have settled a lifetime of questions of and around, quote, what are you? C'est la vie. I learned to live with the mystery, just like I learned to live with losing you the day after we met. Ironically, though, my deepest rage is that in losing you upon meeting, I felt no anger, but more relief. What to make of that for the next 30 years? But everything has a right to exist, even me. So there we go. Love in the beyond, your daughter. So it's kind of a heavy letter for Mother's Day, not the light Hallmark version. But, I think of late people have gotten more comfortable talking about how sad this holiday can make them, or, all of the complex emotions that it can evoke, because the most fundamental relationships in our life with our parents are usually just that. Even if both of your parents are biological, even if both of them are still alive, even if everything is seemingly copacetic, it is complex simply because they are the relationships that have the most gravitas in our lives. So happy Mother's Day to all, whatever the nature of that relationship might be.